In 2025, the post-affirmative action era, families who rely on setting instead of strategy are already at a loss, losing millions in potential scholarships and even more in admission. Researchers and federal data demonstrate that there is a rapid decline of Black students at top universities. If our students are going to defy that decline, we have to start shifting our strategy and approach to college admissions entirely. What we're currently doing is not working. If you're a Black parent writing big checks to a top school thinking we're covered, that is not the case. You're actually the most at risk. I know that might be hard to hear, especially if you've already been investing all of that money into that top school, but stay with me. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what you need to do to help your student cultivate that advantage at whatever school they may currently be at. This strategy is still going to work even for your most time-constrained student. Hi, I'm Nicole. My husband Timothy and I help Black families raise leaders, not just applicants. Our students have earned nearly $4 million in scholarship and admissions to some of the top universities across the country, from Stanford, Princeton, Duke, Carnegie Mellon, and the list goes on. If you're ready to personalize everything that I talk about today to your student, there's a link below to book a strategy session. We're going to help you lay this out for your student at whatever grade they're in right now. So let me share with you a composite story a client shared with me about one of her friends. Florida mom, Virginia Tech alum, put her daughter through a private school at $40,000 per year. And this all started in 9th grade. In 8th grade, she believed what many parents of high-achieving students are told. If I can just get her into the right school, then everything else will take care of itself. By senior year, her daughter had done everything right. She had all the APs, she had the leadership position, perfect GPA, service, all of it was there on paper. Decision day came, Virginia Tech said, "We regret to inform you." Later she said, "I thought I bought my daughter a shortcut. Yes, she had to work hard, but I thought I had set her up for definite success. Now I see that I only bought her a seat in a crowded line." And that is exactly what we call the prestige trap. As a high-income Black professional, you have made strides in your career so your student could be set up for success in a way that you never had it. But the fact is that money that is opening that access is not the pathway to elite admissions. That is the old strategy, and it does not work in this post-affirmative action era. Private schools don't give your child advantage. They're actually giving your student more competition. A recent family I spoke to took her daughter out of the public school where she was top of her class, on track to be valedictorian, thriving in her local public school, went to one of the top boarding schools in New Jersey and found herself below average in her class, struggling to keep up with the pace. Now, I'm not saying that you should shy your student away from competitive academic environments, but the fact is you can still get a really high quality education at a public school and supplement what's happening within that high school so your student actually has more time outside of the classroom to do the other things that are actually going to push the needle to competition. A lot of these private schools and boarding schools have a lot of add-ons that ultimately burn your student out and take time away from what's going to actually set them apart in elite admissions, because most families are still buying the lie that academics are the core and extracurriculars are the icing on the cake. That cannot be further from the truth. In today's admissions environment, academics and extracurriculars work hand in hand. Without one or the other, your student is not going to be considered. Colleges are businesses and they are looking for students to invest in so that student can later invest in them, either through giving monetarily or by making the school look good through their successful career. That is the game of college admissions. The work of applying to college is about branding and packaging. College admissions officers can see right through a student that simply came from money, affluence, wealth, whether you're white or Black. Especially now that race is not being considered, all that college admissions officer is going to see is an affluent family. The student had no initiative and the parent was driving the process. One, the private school, because the parent is funding the bill. The student did not earn the money to go to that school. Secondly, a lot of parents in these situations think, well, let me have my kid go to a prestigious summer program at Brown or Harvard or Princeton. And again, college admissions officers see right through this. This is what we call pay-for-play programs. They are not demonstrating the character that college admissions officers are looking for on the application. You're filling your students' calendar, even their summer, with more and more and more activities. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, since my kid is working so hard over winter break or during summer break, let them rest a little. But it's ultimately sad because they're resting from work that was aimless in the first place. This is the prestige trap. It is a cycle, a hamster wheel all being funded by your hard-earned dollars and not getting you any closer to the goal. What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. Black students are the only students with a declining admission rate at these top colleges. We don't understand the levers that actually push the needle to getting us in these doors. Prestige does not buy differentiation. What is the key to your student being set apart? I mentioned extracurriculars, but it's not what you think extracurriculars are. I hear this all the time from parents. I'm going to have my students start a nonprofit podcast. I have to humbly say to them, that is not going to push the needle. I had a mom recently, she came to me, well, my daughter is helping Black students be more self-aware of STEM and getting to STEM careers. She mentioned that there were 70, 100 people at the event, and she asked me my opinion. I said, that is not impressive. If your goal is elite admissions, if your goal is top scholarship, merit money earned, right? That is not going to make your student competitive. Why? Because there's a bunch of Black kids out there trying to help other Black kids, okay? Respectfully, it is not a market gap. What your student has to do is find a gap that's not yet being filled. If it is already being addressed, you need to be able to help your student figure out how can they solve this in a way where it's not yet being solved. We had a student working with us, and he said, well, I'm going to start an AI app for fitness. You might think, oh, that sounds so revolutionary. Well, when you do the market research, there are already so many fitness apps that leverage AI because that's what's trending. Your leadership cannot look like every other student. So you're finding the gap in the market and you're thinking, how can I solve this in an innovative way? The private school is not helping your student translate their values to the brand that they're trying to build for their college admissions application. They are in junior year helping your student develop a college list. They might help your student in their English class do some essay editing or have some workshops outside of that with the college counselor. But other than that, they're not doing anything else. My sisters went to private school. Many of our clients have had their kids go through private school. Even at the best institutions, I hate to break it to you, all that money you're paying is not filling the gap to differentiate. The fact is we are overpaying for underpositioned outcomes. We're writing six-figure checks for K through 12. My family knew it well. My dad, former Wall Street exec, was paying. We were going to the top private schools in the country. But we realized as a family that was not going to be the direct pathway to admissions. The fact is your student already has everything they need at their current school. We're not saying that private schools are not great at what they do. There's a gap in bridging that great work that they do to college admissions and translating that to top admissions and merit money. So what do elite colleges award now? How can your student make the most of that experience? What we support our families in doing is breaking down our TALL framework. So theme, academics, leadership, and legacy. This all starts with your student's theme. You want to be looking at what are your students' interdisciplinary interests. Your student most likely is not just interested in one thing. There's maybe 3 or 4 subjects that they're interested in. Now, if your student is really passionate about one, that's great. For our students that have multiple interests, that's more incredible because we can create an even more novel theme that brings together all their interests to really reflect the fullness of who they are. Once we have that theme, we want to shape out their academics. A recent parent told me, we don't need any help with academics because the school already plans that out. It is a huge myth to think that academics is just about rigor. It is not as simple as the math track to make sure your student is taking AP calculus. We want to be strategic about academic selection to ensure that it aligns with the theme. In addition to that, we also want to be leveraging informal conversations with students and alumni of that high school to figure out what AP classes are easier than the others. I give the example of why I chose to take AP European History. The teacher was simply known to be nicer and a lot more chill than the AP US History 2 teacher. It's called GPA hacking. We're going to optimize their AP selection to increase that chance of an A and minimizing the amount of time that they have to put into the class so they can focus their time more on the next point, which is leadership. When we think about leadership, and I have other videos on this, go watch them on our channel. We want to build and map out a 4-year scalable leadership project. So we're clear about what does the student want to accomplish in 4 years with this project and working backwards. We're going to select an organizational structure as a nonprofit, a school club, or a business. If your student is in the medical or engineering and they want to do research, they're going to put that research in the context of their nonprofit. nonprofit. You're going to define the mission, the vision, the market differentiation. You're going to put out a plan to help them build that leadership year to year. That's leadership. The fourth piece, legacy, that scale element to it. If you're sitting here wondering, how in the world can my student do that much with leadership if they have so many required extracurriculars? We want to make the most of the weekends, or we're going to have to make the most of breaks, primarily summer break, to make sure we're doing planning in summer and the heavy lifting of the implementation, so the school year is more about maintenance. For example, if your student is doing a nonprofit, we want to do the heavy lifting of planning out the events, making sure they have the 501c3 status, doing all the planning of that nonprofit. During the school year, your student simply has to implement on it. It's not as much work to do in the day-to-day. That's essentially how you're going to map it out for your student if they don't have a lot of time. In that case, we're going to focus on one major leadership development project. You're going to want to cut out all the other excess. So once you have your theme, you're going to list out all your students' activities, and you're going to ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close is this to the theme? How much does it align? And if there's anything under a 5, you want to delete those things and get your student unengaged so they can spend more time on their academics and on their leadership. If your student could lead one project that aligned with your family's values, I want you to put in the comments, what is one of your values that you'd want their project to align with? If this video helped you out, go ahead and book that strategy session. We're going to talk about how does this personally apply to your student. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell to be notified every time we release a new video. Like, share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one. Go ahead and watch this video next.